In the year 2147, humanity was no longer the dominant force in the galaxy. Earth had fallen far behind other civilizations when it came to advanced technology and weapons. Alien species with sleek starships and energy-based armaments often laughed at Earth's attempts to keep up. At a large meeting aboard an orbiting space station called Orion's Reach, delegates from many planets gathered to discuss matters of trade, diplomacy, and defense. Among the humans present was Nathan Cole, a quiet man who worked as a sniper for Earth's Special Operations Division. Nathan wasn't like the others. While most soldiers relied on flashy gadgets or high-tech gear, Nathan preferred simplicity. His weapon of choice was a long-range rifle that looked outdated compared to the glowing plasma guns and humming energy blades carried by alien warriors. Many of the non-human delegates at the summit couldn't help but chuckle when they saw his equipment displayed during a presentation. One of them, a tall insect-like creature named Fraxtor, even pointed at Nathan's rifle and said loudly, "Is this your idea of power? A stick that shoots tiny pieces of metal." The room erupted in laughter. Some aliens slapped their appendages together in amusement, while others shook their heads in disbelief. Nathan stood silently, his expression unreadable. He didn't react to the insults, but deep inside, he felt a mix of frustration and determination. Standing beside him was Captain Laura Hayes, a strong and confident woman who led his unit. She tried her best to defend humanity's efforts, explaining how Earth's weapons were designed for precision and reliability rather than raw destructive force. But her words were drowned out by the mocking voices around her. General Mitchell, another human leader, watched the scene unfold with growing anger. He leaned over to Laura and whispered, "This is hopeless. They'll never take us seriously." Laura glanced at Nathan and replied softly, "Maybe not yet, but we still have something they don't. Skill." As the meeting continued, the mockery only grew worse. Another delegate, a reptilian creature with shimmering scales, held up a small device that emitted a blinding flash of light. "Here," he said, tossing it toward Nathan. "Maybe this will make your toy more impressive." The comment drew more laughter from the crowd. Nathan caught the device without saying a word, examining it briefly before slipping it into his pocket. Though the situation seemed bleak, there was a flicker of resolve in his eyes. Later that evening, after the formal sessions ended, Nathan walked alone along one of the station's observation decks. Through the wide windows, he could see the vast expanse of stars stretching endlessly into the void. It reminded him of why he became a soldier, to protect Earth and ensure its survival in a dangerous universe. As he gazed outward, Laura joined him, her boots clicking softly against the metal floor. "They don't understand what we're capable of," she said, breaking the silence. "No, they don't," Nathan replied calmly. "But maybe it's time we show them." Laura smiled faintly. "I thought you'd say that. Just remember, this isn't just about proving them wrong. It's about giving humanity a chance to stand tall again." Nathan nodded, gripping his rifle tightly. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but he also knew that sometimes the simplest tools in the right hands could achieve the impossible. And if anyone doubted that, they would soon learn otherwise. The mockery reached its peak when Fraxtor, the towering insectoid ambassador, decided to push things further. During a break in the summit's discussions, he approached General Mitchell and issued a bold challenge. "Let your best warrior face one of our combat drones." Fraxtor sneered, his mandibles clicking with amusement. "If your so-called weapons are as effective as you claim, prove it." The room fell silent for a moment before erupting into murmurs of excitement. Word of the challenge spread quickly, not just among the delegates but across the galaxy, thanks to interstellar communication networks. General Mitchell hesitated, unsure if accepting such a challenge was wise. He glanced at Nathan, who stood quietly nearby, his rifle slung over his shoulder. Nathan noticed the general's gaze and stepped forward. "Sir, let me do this," he said firmly. His voice carried a quiet confidence that caught everyone off guard. Laura, standing close by, gave a subtle nod of approval. Though General Mitchell still had doubts about sending a sniper against advanced alien technology, he reluctantly agreed. There was no backing down now, not without appearing weak. The rules of the duel were simple. Nathan would face off against an AI-driven combat drone, armed with pulse lasers and reinforced armor. The battle would take place on Eos 7, a barren moon often used for testing weapons. If Nathan won, humanity would earn respect and recognition. If he lost, Earth's reputation would sink even lower. As preparations began, Nathan spent hours studying the drone's design and capabilities. It was fast, heavily armored, and equipped with sensors that could detect movement from miles away. To most people, the odds seemed impossible. But Nathan didn't care about the odds. He cared about finding a way to win. Laura accompanied Nathan as he trained for the upcoming fight. She helped him analyze data and strategize, offering insights based on her experience in tactical operations. "You can't rely on brute force here," she reminded him one evening as they reviewed footage of the drone in action. "Use what you've got, your instincts, your precision, and the environment. That's how you'll beat them." Meanwhile, news of the duel reached every corner of the galaxy. Billions tuned in to watch the event, eager to see whether humanity's champion could rise to the occasion. Betting pools sprang up, with overwhelming odds favoring the drone. Back on Earth, people held their breath, hoping for a miracle. Nathan tried to ignore the pressure, focusing instead on the task ahead. Each night, he practiced until his arms ached, perfecting his aim and rehearsing different scenarios in his mind. On the day of the duel, Nathan boarded a shuttle bound for Eos 7. Laura walked with him to the boarding ramp, her expression serious but encouraging. "Remember why you're doing this," she told him. "Not for fame or glory, but to remind the galaxy that humanity isn't something to laugh at." Nathan nodded, gripping his rifle tightly. "I won't let you down," he promised. When they arrived at the arena, a vast, rocky expanse surrounded by jagged cliffs, Nathan felt a strange sense of calm. The crowd of alien spectators buzzed with anticipation, their voices echoing through the cold air. Reporters hovered above in flying cameras, capturing every detail. Vraxtor himself stood near the sidelines, a smug grin on his face. "This will be quick," he declared loudly, drawing laughter from those around him. As Nathan took his position, he scanned the battlefield carefully. Every rock, crevice, and shadow became part of his plan. The drone activated with a low hum, its sleek frame glinting under the artificial lights. For a moment, Nathan closed his eyes, steadying his breathing. When he opened them again, there was no trace of doubt in his gaze. This wasn't just a fight. It was a chance to change how the galaxy saw humanity. And he wasn't going to waste it. The duel began with a deafening roar as the combat drone activated its thrusters and shot forward like a silver streak. Its pulse lasers hummed to life, sending bursts of bright green energy slicing through the air. Nathan didn't waste a second. He dropped low behind a large boulder, feeling the heat of the laser blasts as they scorched the ground nearby. Dust and debris flew everywhere, but Nathan stayed calm, his focus sharp. He knew he couldn't afford to panic, not when every move mattered. Peering around the edge of the rock, Nathan studied the drone's movements. It was fast, darting left and right with mechanical precision. Its sensors scanned the area constantly, searching for any sign of him. For now, the drone relied on brute force, firing wildly in hopes of flushing Nathan out into the open. But Nathan had no intention of playing by its rules. He waited patiently, letting the drone burn through its initial burst of energy. Laura, watching from a safe distance via a live feed, clenched her fists nervously. She knew how dangerous this fight was. The drone wasn't just faster and stronger. It was also protected by thick armor that could withstand most attacks. A single wrong move, and Nathan would be finished. Still, she trusted his skills. Over the years, she'd seen him take down targets others thought were impossible. If anyone could win this, it was him. After a few minutes, the drone paused to recalibrate its sensors. This was the moment Nathan had been waiting for. Moving quickly, he shifted to a new position, using the rocky terrain to mask his movements. The drone's scanners swept the area again, but Nathan stayed low, blending into the shadows. Finally, he found what he was looking for, a small seam in the drone's armor near its underside. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Taking a deep breath, Nathan steadied his rifle against a flat stone. His finger hovered over the trigger as he lined up the shot. The distance was great, and the drone was still moving, but Nathan's hands were steady. Years of practice had taught him to block out distractions and focus only on the target. With a soft exhale, he pulled the trigger. The bullet zipped through the air, invisible to the naked eye, and struck the seam perfectly. There was a brief spark, followed by a loud hiss as one of the drone's thrusters sputtered and died. The machine wobbled awkwardly, trying to compensate for the loss of balance. The crowd of alien spectators fell silent, stunned by what they had just witnessed. No one expected a human weapon to penetrate the drone's defenses so effectively. Nathan didn't stop to celebrate. He knew disabling one thruster wasn't enough to win the fight. As the drone adjusted its flight pattern, he moved again, slipping behind another cluster of rocks. Now that the drone was damaged, it became more aggressive, unleashing a relentless barrage of laser fire in all directions. Nathan ducked and rolled, narrowly avoiding several blasts. One strike grazed his arm, tearing through the fabric of his suit and leaving a shallow burn. He gritted his teeth but kept moving, refusing to let the pain slow him down. From her remote location, Laura monitored the battle closely. She noticed the drone's new strategy. It was using its remaining thruster to hover unpredictably, making it harder for Nathan to get another clear shot. "You'll have to bait it," she whispered into her comm device, hoping her advice reached him. Whether or not he heard her, Nathan seemed to act on instinct. He grabbed a piece of broken metal from the ground and tossed it into the open. The drone immediately turned toward the noise, firing blindly at the distraction. This gave Nathan the opening he needed. He sprinted to higher ground, climbing onto a jagged ridge where he could see the entire battlefield below. The drone spun around, its sensors locking onto his new position. Before it could fire, Nathan aimed once more, this time targeting another weak point along its side panel. The shot rang out, striking true. Smoke began pouring from the drone's frame as its systems started to fail. The audience erupted into gasps and murmurs. What had begun as mockery was slowly turning into awe. Even Vraxtor looked uneasy, his smug grin fading as he realized the duel wasn't going as planned. Nathan stood tall on the ridge, his rifle ready, prepared to finish what he had started. The battle was far from over. Though Nathan had managed to disable one of the drone's thrusters and damage its side panel, the machine was still operational. It hovered erratically in the air, its remaining systems working overtime to compensate for the injuries it had sustained. The crowd of alien spectators watched with bated breath, their earlier mockery replaced by a mix of disbelief and curiosity. No one had expected the human sniper to last this long, let alone score multiple hits against such advanced technology. Nathan crouched on the ridge, his breathing steady despite the chaos around him. He knew the drone wouldn't give up easily. Its eye was adapting, learning from each of his moves. Already, it had begun using short, unpredictable bursts of movement to throw off his aim. Worse still, it started emitting pulses of static interference designed to disrupt targeting systems. Nathan's rifle, which relied on precise calculations and sensors, began to falter under the interference. The once clear scope display flickered, making it harder to line up shots. Realizing he couldn't depend solely on his weapon's tech, Nathan switched to manual aiming. This was risky. Manual mode required perfect judgment and timing, but it was the only way to bypass the interference. He adjusted the settings on his rifle, disabling the automated features and relying entirely on his own skill. Laura, watching remotely, held her breath. She knew how difficult manual aiming could be, especially at such long distances, but she also knew Nathan was one of the best snipers Earth had ever produced. If anyone could pull this off, it was him. The drone seemed to sense the change in tactics. It stopped hovering and instead darted toward Nathan's position, firing rapidly with its pulse lasers. Nathan rolled to the side just as a blast struck the ground where he had been moments before. The force of the explosion sent shards of rock flying, one of which grazed his leg. Ignoring the sting, Nathan scrambled behind another large boulder for cover. His mind raced as he analyzed the situation. The drone was getting closer, and its erratic movements made it nearly impossible to hit. He needed a new plan, and fast. Thinking quickly, Nathan decided to use the environment to his advantage. He grabbed a handful of loose rocks and tossed them in different directions, creating false trails to confuse the drone. The tactic worked. The drone hesitated, its sensors detecting multiple potential targets. While it scanned the area, Nathan slipped away, moving silently through the rocky terrain. Each step was deliberate, calculated to minimize noise. He found a narrow crevice between two cliffs and pressed himself against the wall, waiting for the right moment to strike. From her remote station, Laura monitored the battle intently. She noticed the drone's pattern changing. It was becoming more cautious, likely aware that Nathan was luring it into a trap. "Stay patient," she murmured into her comm device, though she wasn't sure if he could hear her over the static. Her faith in him remained unshaken, even as the situation grew increasingly tense. Finally, the drone locked onto Nathan's location and charged forward, its remaining thruster roaring like an angry beast. It fired wildly, sending waves of energy crashing into the cliffs around him. Rocks tumbled down, forcing Nathan to leap out of the way. As he moved, he spotted a weak point, a small ventilation grill on the underside of the drone. It was barely visible, but it was there. If he could hit that, he might disable the drone's core processor. With no time to waste, Nathan sprinted toward a nearby outcrop, using it as cover while he lined up his shot. The drone spun around, its sensors zeroing in on his position. Just as it prepared to fire, Nathan stepped out from behind the rock, steadying his rifle. The world seemed to slow down as he took aim, blocking out everything except the target in front of him. His finger tightened on the trigger. The bullet flew true, striking the ventilation grill with pinpoint accuracy. There was a loud crackle as the drone's internal systems overloaded. Sparks erupted from its frame, and the machine shuddered violently before plummeting to the ground with a resounding crash. Smoke billowed from its remains as the audience fell into stunned silence. For a moment, Nathan simply stood there, his chest rising and falling as he caught his breath. Then, slowly, the alien spectators began to clap. What started as scattered applause grew into a thunderous roar, echoing across the barren moon. Even Vraxtor approached Nathan, his expression unreadable. "You have proven yourself," he said grudgingly, extending a clawed hand. Nathan shook it firmly, knowing this victory was about more than just pride. It was about proving humanity's worth. The victory on EOS 7 changed everything. News of Nathan's triumph spread quickly, not just among the delegates at the summit, but across the galaxy. Images of the damaged drone and Nathan standing tall amidst the rubble were broadcast on every major interstellar network. For the first time in decades, humanity wasn't seen as weak or outdated. Instead, people began talking about Earth's ingenuity and resourcefulness. The aliens who had once laughed at human weapons now spoke of them with a mix of respect and curiosity. Back aboard Orion's Reach, Nathan became an unexpected celebrity. Delegates from various species approached him, eager to learn more about his tactics and equipment. Some even asked to examine his rifle, marveling at its simplicity compared to their own high-tech armaments. Vraxtor, despite his earlier arrogance, admitted that Nathan's skill had taught him something valuable. Sometimes, success didn't come from having the most advanced tools, but from knowing how to use what you had effectively. General Mitchell, who had initially doubted Nathan's abilities, couldn't hide his pride. "You've done more than win a fight," he said during a private meeting with Nathan and Laura. "You've given humanity a seat at the table." Laura nodded in agreement, though she noticed Nathan seemed uncomfortable with all the attention. He wasn't the kind of person who enjoyed being in the spotlight. When reporters swarmed him for interviews, he gave short, modest answers, deflecting praise onto his training and teammates. Despite the newfound admiration, Nathan struggled to adjust to his sudden fame. Back on Earth, streets were renamed after him, and statues were erected in his honor. Children played games pretending to be Nathan Cole, the sniper who saved humanity. But Nathan didn't feel like a hero. To him, he'd simply done his job. The constant adoration made him uneasy, and he found himself longing for the quiet solitude of his old life. Laura understood how he felt. One evening, as they walked along the observation deck of Orion's Reach, she tried to reassure him. "You don't have to carry this weight alone," she said gently. "What you did wasn't just for you. It was for everyone. Let people celebrate it. It gives them hope." Nathan sighed, leaning against the railing. "I know, but I didn't do it for statues or speeches. I did it because we deserved respect. That's all I wanted." Laura smiled faintly. "And you got it. Now maybe it's time to think about what comes next." What came next turned out to be both an opportunity and a challenge. In the weeks following the duel, diplomatic relations between Earth and other civilizations improved significantly. Trade agreements were signed, and joint research projects were proposed. Many alien leaders expressed interest in partnering with humanity, intrigued by their unique approach to problem-solving. Nathan's victory had opened doors that had long been closed. But with these opportunities came new responsibilities. General Mitchell called Nathan and Laura into his office one day to discuss the future. "We need someone to train our recruits," he explained. "Someone who can teach them how to adapt, improvise, and think like you did out there. You're the best man for the job." Nathan hesitated. Training others wasn't something he'd ever imagined doing. He preferred working alone, relying only on himself. But Laura encouraged him, reminding him of the bigger picture. "This isn't just about you anymore," she said. "It's about making sure humanity stays strong. If you can pass on your skills, you'll be helping us prepare for whatever comes next." After some thought, Nathan agreed. He returned to Earth, where he set up a specialized training program for soldiers. The facility was located in a remote mountain range, far from prying eyes. There, Nathan taught recruits the importance of precision, patience, and creativity. He showed them how to read the battlefield, use their surroundings to their advantage, and trust their instincts when technology failed them. Word of the program spread, and soon, even alien warriors began showing interest. A few requested permission to join the training sessions, eager to learn from the human sniper who had beaten their combat drone. At first, Nathan was skeptical, but Laura convinced him to give it a try. "If we're going to work together in the galaxy, we might as well start here," she said. As months passed, Nathan found a new sense of purpose in teaching. Watching his students grow stronger and more confident reminded him why he had fought so hard on EOS 7. Humanity had earned its place among the stars, and now it was up to them to keep it. Though the road ahead wouldn't always be easy, Nathan knew they were ready to face whatever challenges lay in store. Despite the progress humanity had made, not everyone was happy about Earth's newfound status. In the shadows of the galaxy, a group of rogue warriors known as the Iron Talons began plotting against humanity. Led by Kelleron, a disgraced former general from an alien species called the Zorathians, the group despised the idea of Earth gaining respect. They saw humans as weak and unworthy, and Nathan's victory over the combat drone only fueled their anger. To them, it was an insult, a reminder of their own failures. Kelleron had once been a celebrated military leader, renowned for his tactical brilliance. But after a disastrous campaign that resulted in heavy losses, he was stripped of his rank and exiled. Humiliated and bitter, he vowed revenge, not just against those who had cast him aside, but also against anyone who stood in the way of his vision for galactic dominance. When news of Nathan's triumph reached him, Kelleron saw an opportunity. Attacking Earth would not only restore his reputation, but also send a message to the rest of the galaxy. Humanity's rise would not be tolerated. The Iron Talons started small, targeting remote outposts on the edge of human territory. Their attacks were swift and brutal, leaving little evidence behind. At first, the incident seemed random, pirates or scavengers looking to steal supplies. But as the frequency increased, patterns emerged. Laura noticed the connection while reviewing reports late one night at headquarters. "This isn't coincidence," she said aloud, her voice tense. "Someone's testing us." She brought her findings to General Mitchell, who agreed they needed to act quickly. If these raids continued unchecked, they could escalate into something far worse. The general ordered increased patrols around vulnerable areas and tasked Nathan with leading reconnaissance missions to gather intelligence. Though Nathan preferred training recruits, he understood the gravity of the situation. Humanity's fragile peace was at risk, and he couldn't stand by while others fought to protect it. Nathan and Laura traveled to one of the targeted outposts, a small research station orbiting a distant moon. The facility showed signs of recent damage, scorch marks along the walls, broken equipment, and frightened scientists struggling to repair what they could. One of the researchers, a young woman named Elena, recounted the attack in detail. "They came out of nowhere," she said, her hands trembling. "Their ships were fast, too fast for us to track. And they didn't speak. They just fired." As Nathan listened, he noticed something unusual about the wreckage. Pieces of alien tech littered the ground, remnants of weapons unlike anything he'd seen before. He picked up a shard of metal, examining it closely. "These aren't standard-issue weapons," he said, showing it to Laura. "Whoever attacked this place is using custom gear. They're well-funded and organized." Laura nodded grimly, "Which means we're dealing with more than just pirates." Back at headquarters, Nathan and Laura pieced together the clues. Using data from multiple outposts, they identified a pattern. The attacks always occurred near unguarded supply lines. Whoever was behind them wasn't just causing chaos. They were cutting off resources, weakening humanity's defenses bit by bit. It was a strategy straight out of Caloron's playbook. When Nathan confronted General Mitchell with their findings, the general hesitated. "We don't have proof it's him," he said cautiously. "If we accuse the wrong person, it could start a war." Nathan's jaw tightened. "And if we wait too long, we'll already be at war." In the end, Laura stepped in, offering a compromise. "Let us go after them," she said firmly. "Nathan can track them down, find where they're hiding, and stop them before they cause real damage." After some deliberation, the general agreed. Nathan and Laura prepared for the mission, gathering a small team of trusted operatives. As they boarded their ship, Nathan felt a familiar weight settle over him. This wasn't like the duel on EO7. It wasn't about proving humanity's worth. This was about survival. And Nathan knew better than anyone that sometimes the hardest battles were the ones no one else saw coming. Nathan and Laura's mission took them deep into the uncharted regions of space, far from Earth's protected territories. Their destination was a cluster of asteroids known as the Shadow Veil, a lawless zone where pirates, smugglers, and rogue factions often hid. It was the perfect place for the Iron Talons to operate without being detected. As their ship approached the area, Nathan studied the scanner readings carefully. The asteroids were jagged and close together, making it easy to lose track of anything moving through the field. The team moved cautiously, knowing that one wrong move could alert their enemies. Laura stayed by Nathan's side, her eyes sharp as she monitored the ship's systems. "We're looking for any sign of activity," she reminded the crew. "Energy signatures, heat trails, anything unusual." The others nodded, each person focused on their task. Everyone knew how important this mission was. If they failed, the attacks on human outposts would only grow worse. After hours of searching, they found what they were looking for, a faint energy signal coming from a large asteroid in the center of the field. Nathan leaned forward, his gaze fixed on the screen. "That's not natural," he said quietly. "Something's powering it." Laura agreed, guiding the ship closer while keeping its stealth systems active. As they drew nearer, the outline of a hidden base became visible, carved into the rock itself. Lights flickered inside, and small ships patrolled the perimeter. "This has to be them," Laura whispered. She turned to the team. "We'll split up. Nathan and I will go in on foot to gather intel. The rest of you stay with the ship and keep it ready in case we need an escape." Nathan checked his rifle one last time before stepping into the airlock. He and Laura suited up in lightweight combat gear, designed to let them move quickly and quietly. Once outside, they used magnetic boots to walk along the asteroid's surface, sticking to the shadows to avoid detection. The base's defenses were minimal. Clearly, whoever was inside didn't expect anyone to find them here. Reaching a maintenance hatch, Nathan worked quickly to disable the lock. With a soft click, the door slid open, revealing a dimly lit corridor beyond. The two slipped inside, moving silently through the narrow passageways. They passed storage rooms filled with stolen supplies and weapons, confirming their suspicions. This was indeed the Iron Talon's hideout. As they ventured deeper, they overheard voices coming from a nearby chamber. Peering through a crack in the door, Nathan saw Kelleran standing at the center of a group of warriors. His appearance was unmistakable, scared and menacing, his eyes burning with hatred. "The humans think they've earned their place," he snarled. "But we'll show them how fragile their peace really is." Laura glanced at Nathan, her expression grim. They had found their target. But taking down Kelleran wouldn't be easy. He was surrounded by heavily armed guards, and the base was too well fortified for a direct assault. Nathan thought for a moment, then signaled to Laura. Using hand gestures, he outlined a plan. Create distractions to draw the guards away, giving them a chance to strike at Kelleran directly. Laura nodded in agreement. Working together, they planted small charges in key areas of the base, setting timers to go off at intervals. When the first explosion echoed through the corridors, chaos erupted. Guards rushed toward the noise, leaving Kelleran exposed. Nathan and Laura seized the opportunity, moving swiftly toward the main chamber. Inside, Kelleran spun around, his claws raised defensively. "You," he spat when he saw Nathan. "I should have guessed you'd come crawling after me." Nathan didn't respond. Instead, he raised his rifle, aiming steadily at the rogue leader. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. Then, with a single shot, Nathan fired, striking true. Kelleran staggered back, clutching his chest as alarms blared throughout the base. "Let's go," Laura shouted, grabbing Nathan's arm. Together, they raced back toward the ship, explosions lighting up the darkness behind them. As they reached the airlock, Nathan allowed himself a brief glance back. The shadow veil was crumbling, just like the man who had tried to destroy humanity's future. The escape from the shadow veil was anything but smooth. As Nathan and Laura sprinted back to their ship, the asteroid base continued to collapse around them. The charges they had planted detonated in rapid succession, sending shockwaves rippling through the rocky terrain. Debris rained down from the ceiling of the narrow corridors, forcing the two to dodge falling chunks of stone and metal. Their magnetic boots struggled to keep them grounded as the entire structure shook violently. Behind them, Kelleran's surviving guards gave chase, firing wildly with energy rifles. Bright blasts of light illuminated the dark passageways, narrowly missing Nathan and Laura as they pushed forward. "We're almost there," Laura shouted over the chaos, her voice barely audible above the roar of collapsing rock and distant explosions. She glanced at Nathan, who was focused entirely on reaching the ship. His face was streaked with dust, but his eyes remained sharp and determined. When they finally reached the airlock, their crew greeted them with relief. "Get us out of here," Nathan barked as he climbed aboard. The pilot wasted no time, powering up the engines and pulling away from the disintegrating asteroid. Through the cockpit window, they watched as the base crumbled into fragments, swallowed by the endless void of space. Kelleran's forces were gone, along with any trace of the Iron Talon's operations. As the adrenaline began to fade, Nathan sank into his seat, letting out a long breath. Laura joined him, her body tense but her expression triumphant. "That should put an end to their plans," she said, though her tone carried a hint of caution. Nathan nodded slowly, knowing that while they had dealt a major blow to the rogue faction, threats like this might never fully disappear. Still, for now, humanity was safe. Back on Earth, news of the mission spread quickly. General Mitchell praised Nathan and Laura for their bravery, calling their actions a decisive victory against those who sought to undermine our progress. The public celebrated once again, hailing Nathan as a hero not just for his skill in battle, but for his willingness to step up when it mattered most. Statues of him were updated to include scenes of the daring raid on the Shadow Veil, and schools added chapters about his exploits to history books. But Nathan didn't care for the attention. He returned to the training facility in the mountains, where life felt simpler. Teaching recruits gave him purpose, and he found joy in watching them grow stronger and more confident under his guidance. Many of the soldiers he trained went on to serve in key roles across Earth's defense forces, carrying forward the lessons he had taught them. Laura stayed close to Nathan during this time, often visiting the facility to check on his progress. Though she held a higher rank and spent much of her time handling diplomatic matters, she always made time for him. "You've done more than anyone could ask for," she told him one evening as they sat by a campfire outside the training grounds. "Don't forget to take a moment for yourself." Nathan smiled faintly, staring into the flames. "I'm not looking for recognition," he replied. "I just want to make sure we're ready for whatever comes next." Their quiet conversation was interrupted by the sound of footsteps approaching. One of Nathan's top students, a young man named Ryan, appeared hesitantly. "Sir, sorry to interrupt," he said, addressing Nathan, "but there's something you need to see." Curious, Nathan followed Ryan to the communications room, where a message was waiting. It was from an alien ambassador, one of the species that had once mocked humanity but now sought partnership. The message was brief but meaningful. "Your actions have earned our respect. We wish to work together to build a better future for all." Nathan exchanged a glance with Laura, who smiled warmly. For the first time in years, humanity wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. They had proven themselves capable of standing alongside other civilizations, earning both allies and admiration. And though challenges would undoubtedly arise again, Nathan knew they were ready to face them head-on. Together, humanity had secured its place among the stars, and nothing could take that away. Months passed after the destruction of the Iron Talon's base, and life seemed to settle into a rhythm of cautious optimism. Humanity's relationships with other species continued to improve, thanks in part to Nathan's efforts. Trade agreements flourished, joint research projects began bearing fruit, and even former skeptics started to see Earth as a valuable partner. But Nathan knew better than anyone that peace was fragile. The galaxy was vast and unpredictable, and not everyone shared the same vision for the future. One day, while leading a training exercise in the mountains, Nathan received an urgent message from Laura. Her face appeared on a small handheld screen, her expression tense. "We've got a problem," she said without preamble. "There's been another attack, this time on one of our main supply hubs near the edge of human space." Nathan frowned, his mind racing. Was it the Iron Talons again? He asked, though he already suspected the answer. Laura shook her head. "No, it's worse. This group calls themselves the Void Reapers. They're new, but they're brutal. Entire colonies have gone dark in the last few weeks. No survivors, no traces, just silence." The weight of her words hit Nathan like a punch to the gut. He had hoped the defeat of Kelleron and his followers would deter others from attacking humanity. Instead, it seemed to have inspired even more dangerous factions. "Do we know who's behind this?" he asked, his voice steady despite the growing unease in his chest. "Not yet," Laura admitted. "But whoever they are, they're moving fast. We need to act before they strike closer to home." Nathan ended the call and turned to Ryan, who had been assisting with the training session. "Gather the team," he said firmly. "We're heading out." Within hours, Nathan and his crew were aboard their ship, en route to the site of the latest attack. The journey was long and quiet, each member lost in their own thoughts. Nathan spent much of the time studying reports about the Void Reapers, piecing together what little information existed. What he found disturbed him. Unlike the Iron Talons, who had focused on resource theft, the Void Reapers left nothing behind. Their methods suggested a chilling level of efficiency and cruelty. When they arrived at the supply hub, the scene was devastating. The once bustling station was eerily silent, its corridors littered with debris and scorch marks. Nathan led the team inside, his rifle at the ready. Every step felt heavier than the last as they searched for clues. In one room, they found evidence of a struggle: overturned furniture, broken equipment, and faint traces of blood smeared across the floor. It was a grim reminder of how quickly things could go wrong. As they explored further, Nathan noticed something unusual: a series of strange symbols etched into the walls. They weren't written in any language he recognized, but Laura identified them as belonging to an ancient alien civilization long thought extinct. "This might be bigger than we thought," she murmured, snapping photos of the markings. "Whoever these Reapers are, they're using technology or knowledge we don't understand." The discovery sent a chill through the team. If the Void Reapers had access to such advanced tools, humanity was facing a threat unlike anything before. Nathan clenched his jaw, determination hardening in his eyes. "We need to find them," he said firmly, "before they find us." Back on the ship, the team worked tirelessly to analyze the data they had collected. Laura cross-referenced the symbols with galactic archives, eventually pinpointing a possible location: a remote nebula shrouded in dense clouds of gas and dust. It was a risky destination, but Nathan didn't hesitate. "Set a course," he ordered. "If they think they can hide, they're wrong." As the ship entered the nebula, visibility dropped to almost zero. Static crackled over the comms, and the lights flickered intermittently. Despite the eerie atmosphere, Nathan remained focused. He knew the stakes were higher than ever. This wasn't just about protecting humanity, it was about survival. And if there was one thing Nathan Cole understood, it was how to fight for what mattered most. The nebula was a labyrinth of swirling gases and shadowy voids, making navigation treacherous. Nathan's ship moved cautiously through the haze, its sensors struggling to penetrate the thick clouds. The crew worked in tense silence, each person focused on their task. Laura monitored the scanners, her fingers flying over the controls as she tried to detect any sign of the Void Reaper's base. "There," she said suddenly, pointing to a faint energy signature on the screen. "That has to be it." Nathan nodded, his grip tightening on the armrest of his seat. "Prepare for landing," he ordered. The ship descended toward a massive structure hidden within the heart of the nebula. It looked like an ancient fortress, its spires jagged and dark against the glowing gas around it. Whatever this place was, it radiated menace. As they approached, Nathan led a small team onto the surface, leaving the rest of the crew behind to guard the ship. Armed with rifles and flashlights, they entered the fortress through a rusted gate that creaked ominously as it opened. Inside, the air was cold and heavy with decay. Strange symbols similar to those found at the supply hub were carved into the walls, glowing faintly in the dim light. Each step echoed loudly, the sound bouncing off the stone corridors. "This place feels wrong," Ryan muttered under his breath, clutching his weapon tightly. Nathan didn't respond, but he felt it too, an unsettling sense of being watched. He motioned for the team to stay close, his eyes scanning every shadow for movement. They soon reached a large chamber at the center of the fortress. In the middle stood a towering figure cloaked in black armor, its helmet adorned with sharp, angular designs. This was the leader of the Void Reapers. Behind them, rows of soldiers stood motionless, their weapons trained on Nathan's team. The room was deathly silent except for the low hum of energy emanating from the walls. "You shouldn't have come here," the leader said, their voice distorted and hollow. Humans are weak. Your kind does not belong among the stars." Nathan stepped forward, his rifle steady in his hands. "We've proven ourselves before," he replied calmly. "And we'll do it again if we have to." The leader laughed, a cold, mechanical sound that sent shivers down everyone's spines. "Prove yourself then," they sneered, raising a hand. The soldiers advanced, surrounding Nathan's team. A fierce battle erupted. Lasers and bullets flew in every direction as Nathan and his team fought back fiercely. Despite being outnumbered, they used the narrow corridors to their advantage, picking off enemies one by one. Nathan stayed focused, taking precise shots that felled multiple foes. But the Void Reapers were relentless, their numbers seemingly endless. Laura shouted a warning as the leader activated some kind of device, causing the ground beneath them to tremble violently. "We need to take them out now," she yelled. Nathan spotted an opportunity. A control panel near the leader glowed brightly, likely powering the fortress. With a quick nod to Ryan, who provided covering fire, Nathan sprinted toward it. Dodging blasts and leaping over debris, he reached the panel and fired a single shot, disabling the device. The fortress shook violently as systems began to fail. "Fall back," Nathan ordered, leading his team toward the exit. They ran as the fortress crumbled around them, narrowly escaping just as the structure collapsed into ruin. Back on the ship, the crew breathed a collective sigh of relief. Though battered and bruised, they had succeeded. Humanity was safe, for now. As they left the nebula behind, Nathan gazed out the window at the stars. He knew there would always be challenges ahead, but he also knew humanity had proven its strength time and again. Together, they had secured their place among the stars, and nothing could take that away.